It's the secrets that make us sick. You can't fix what you won't acknowledge. So let's have a conversation of this time. We're taking it out of the box, yeah, yeah. We're taking it out of the box. We're taking it out of the box. You know it's time. So let's talk about it.
Well, hello everybody. It's that time. We are Tuesday at 7 o'clock, and it is outside the box. We are excited that you have joined us. Let me do um, some little technical thing here real quick and get us where everybody can participate. Let's see here, and we are ready to go. Good morning, gentlemen. I said morning, but good afternoon, gentlemen. How are you guys?
I think it's evening, Bishop.
Yeah, I think you're right, Bishop. I think it is evening. Okay, so we got Pastor Juba, Bishop Foreman, Pastor E. Um, and I'm looking to have another dynamic conversation. Um, Doing part two of this conversation about Pastor Hurt. And my goal for today, gentlemen, is I want to dive just a little deeper, do a little more, get a little more in depth. And so we got Pastor E. Pastor Free should still be coming on soon because he stirred up some stuff last week that we got to get talking about. But before we jump right in, one of the things I did want to kind of ask is this question, and I'm gonna start with you, Jude. Is what do you think the result? No, you know what? I said I was gonna ask that second. The first question I'm gonna ask Pastor Eric. Eric, how would you design? How would you define? Because you were on the show when we talked about about church hurt. How would you define what pastor hurt means to you?
In reverse order, really, I think the biggest. Okay, let me say it this way. In my experience, I think some of the biggest um, pastor hurt as it relates to me and my experiences is honestly when folk leave you that you've done the most for and talk
Okay.
about you on the way out. That's number one. And lack of support for vision. That's pastor hurt to me.
Okay. All right, perfect. So then let me jump back to Pastor Jude and say, Jude, when you think about kind of even what you shared with us last week, and you talk about um, kind of what your experience was, what do you think the lasting effect of the trauma, drama, hurt that you've experienced? What do you think the lasting effect of that has been for you?
PTSD.
Wow. Okay.
PTSD because there are some days you cannot get away from it. Not because you want to hang around it, but there are guys who call you to talk about it because they're dealing with some of the same things. Great shows and discussions like this help you to not just to relive it, but to rehash it, to rethink about it, to regurgitate it. So that there is a such thing as PTSD for the pastors who have struggled, who have taken the blows and the beatings, been the brunt of certain things. So yeah, I'd have to say yeah, PTSD.
Pastor Free, What for you? What do you think the lasting effects of what has hurt you as a pastor are on you? And then I want to treat the PTSD, but I want to get your opinion first.
If I'm hearing you correctly, you said what are the lasting
The
things
lasting
from hurt?
effects, yeah, from hurt. What have they been for you? You think?
To be honest, my biggest thing is not allowing people back in the same place. And sometimes that's a healthy lesson learned, but then sometimes you also set yourself up to miss out on blessings because of distrust, becoming callous, cold, keeping people at a distance when everybody's not the same way, right? And so honestly, there are some people who are suffering the aftermath of what other people did. And so that's what I would say.
I
I
think that's an
struggle.
interesting perspective.
Yeah, I struggle with that.
So Bishop Foreman, Jude said PTSD. What? Wow. What do you think? How do you know pastors? Have you suffered? Do you know other pastors who may define their kind of lasting or residual effect of being hurt as a pastor? PTSD. I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting too. I think, I would probably use the term the law of linkage, right? The law of linkage says in psychology that you will link one experience to a similar experience and create a similar emotional response, which essentially is very similar to post-traumatic stress disorder. I think the reality is that is certainly possible. I think the other thing too, that if you were to sum it all up, if you're not careful, you can hate people. You can begin to hate people and hate your interact. There's a little bit of feedback. I'm not sure where it's coming from, but you begin to hate people and hate your interactions with people. I mean, you see this with Moses, right? Moses, him and God are good. It's when you bring the people into the situation, and Moses gets so angry that he strikes the rock. The rock was an anthropomorphization of Jesus. And God says, Moses, you made all of these good decisions up until this point, but because of this one bad decision, because of your anger with the people, you took it out on me. And so because of that, you'll get to the edge, but you won't cross over. But again, that was Moses' decision. Back to what I said last week. Moses' decision was to pick the people and make an idol out of them over God. And I think sometimes, again, it's not what we do, it's how we do it. So to help me to keep from being in PTSD, I have had to learn to not do it in a way that allows for trauma to overtake me. And that's not a perfect way. You're still going to have that type of thing happen. You're still going to have people who say crazy stuff. You got people who, Pastor E, you said, who you do the most for, and then they go send you an email talking about, please remove me from your list, and and all that kind of stuff. And you're like, remove you from my list? Well, you was on my list when you needed something with your old trifling behind. But that's just the reality. But I love how he described it, that PTSD, because
that's heavy. I mean, that's heavy when you think. When you define the words stress, post-traumatic stress disorder, boy, that's a heavy load. And I think that accounts to clearly why we have some pastors who end up doing things like committing suicide. Bishop, we had a very good friend who was a pastor of a very nice church, had hundreds of members, was over a huge organization of churches across the world, and boom, one day we get a call, and he's gone, and you're just like, what? I mean, and so it made me think about how you can have so many people around you and still be lonely as a pastor.
And not only still be lonely, but success is not a replace for stress.
That's true.
Again, success is not a replace for stress. And so, because the individual we're talking about had no worries. I mean, it was good. Lots of people, especially when you consider the size of the town he was in, he had a megachurch of the size of the town.
Yeah, a megachurch.
preached on every stage, had everything you could possibly want, but it did not make up for that those things that build over the years. And I think it is just to add to what the gentlemen have said. The issue, change is a part of growth. People are going to come, people are going to go. That's life. It is the way in which people discard you so frivolously that creates the stress. People come, people go. In the barbecue business, in the food service and hospitality business, people come, people go. In every business, everybody, different things. People come, people go. But it is the way in which people who you have invested in and poured into can just frivolously throw away and just switch seemingly overnight. That, in my mind, and I'd love to hear what the others think too, that's what creates the stress. It's not the stress that happens. It's the stress of how you did what you did and how trifling and selfish you were in doing it.
And another thing what Bishop Foreman is saying, and one thing I thought about when he was talking is, see, people have the luxury of having church hurt and leaving. But when we have hurt, we got to stay.
And they many times are the contributor to the pastor hurt.
Right. And so it's something I told somebody yesterday is that nobody sees the struggles or the hurt of the pastor because we wear it well. But in reality, they don't understand how we got to preach heavy.
Yeah.
How we have to serve heavy. How we got to teach heavy. Because in their eyes, oh, it's okay. Pastor gonna be all right. Not understanding your struggle at all. And so I think that's the greatest difference is they get to leave, but we got to stay.
Dude.
I shared with a pastor friend this morning. We talk just about every morning because we're both up at extremely early hours. I shared with him the pain I felt the day I lost my oldest daughter. It was second Sunday in July 2002. I got a call saying my daughter had passed away. Born prematurely, stillborn. I was 3 hours away from the wife at the time. It was a Sunday morning, and I did what I believe each one of us would have done. I mounted the pulpit.
You preached anyway.
I mounted the pulpit and I preached, and I let them have it. I let them have it and free that to me, put back into me what had just been sucked out of me. Okay? When preaching was over, they sped me to the airport. I boarded a flight to go home. Not one phone call from a member to say, well, Pastor, are you okay? Not one phone call to say, Pastor, do you need anything? Buddies rallied around, but nobody could know what I was dealing with. Having waited 8 years to get pregnant, only to lose the child through miscarriage. Funeral, I did the arrangements, conducted the funeral. Not one member showed up.
Jude, come on, man. Come on, man. Tell the truth.
Y'all don't know my story, fellas. Not one member showed up, not a card. I returned the next Sunday, mounted the pulpit, and preached again. Now, I don't know if anybody else on here has that experience, but that's some of my experience. Now, and it wasn't but, a few weeks after that I had to stand and conduct a funeral for one of the members in the church who got support from everybody in the community.
Wow. Wow.
So Eve was right when he says those who experience church hurt can change membership. How many of us who've experienced hurt by the church or hurt in the church, hurt while serving the church, can just leave today and then go pastor somewhere else next week?
Dang, dude.
I think one thing he mentioned that really burns me up is the kind of the hypocrisy or the entitlement that sometimes church people have. That you
Come on,
supposed to
free.
do this for me, you supposed to look out for me, you supposed to do this, that, and the other. Like he said, when we going through, there's no reciprocity at all. It's like we supposed to be, superheroes. Just last Wednesday, and I was glad we doing a 2-part, because had I mentioned it last Wednesday when it was fresh, I'd have been really cussing. Like I had a member to tell me earlier that day, that they felt like I hadn't been present for them during the pandemic. Now, like, that statement in and of itself is crazy, right? Because if you've been pastoring through this thing, nigga, I mean, whew. I need your support, right? If never before, I need your support. But the crazy thing is that them saying it made me look at myself. I'm the type of person that when somebody criticizes me, I look at myself to see how valid it is. I went back through my text thread and I saw that I text that person just to check on them while I was in the hospital fighting with COVID. I text them from my hospital bed. And here we are a couple of months later, and they telling me I wasn't there for them. So I'm saying, like, you know what I'm saying? People be on some straight. I just got out of a session, and my brother cussed a lot, so it's in me. So
you in the hospital fighting for your life.
I'm in the hospital.
And I'm gonna say this: a lot of us clowned you lovingly because we did not know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, keep it clean, Pat. Yeah, you see my face.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all know in my mind that there are colloquialisms, expletives, and deletives going off in my head. Yeah, y'all. I ain't in no good headspace behind this foolishness today because people don't know. Again, I shared this morning. One more story that I'm shutting up for the rest of the show. We gave a unwed mother a baby shower, showered her with gifts, sent her home, and this wasn't her first baby. Okay, and then somebody says, and I told this to Eric. We were in the Austin, and somebody says, "Well, when are we gonna give First Lady a baby shower?" She was pregnant with Nush at the time, and lady shouts out from the floor, "That bitch ain't our wife." Yeah. So yeah, when you guys talk about Pastor Hurt, I ain't the only one got it, but doggone, I got enough of it to share. I mean, she shouted out. Now, that's not what ticked me off. What ticked me off was nobody told her to shut up. Nobody said, "Well, hey, we just gave this chick who has 5 kids a baby shower, 5 different baby daddies, and here Pastor and First Lady, they at least tried to do it the right way, and she gets called out of her name." So yeah, everybody has experienced something different, but that's been my experience.
Wow.
Bishop Bright.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead, Bishop Foreman. I just kind of wanted to draw that statement out just a little bit, because stuff like what Jude just articulated, man, that kind of stuff happen to pastors all the time. It's kind of like it's kind of like celebrities. If you're gonna be a celebrity, you're gonna have to take the praise and you're gonna have to take the criticism and the attacks. And being a pastor, can be similar in that way, that some people gonna love you, but then some people gonna hate you, and they're gonna take advantage of every opportunity to try to bring you down. My struggle is when the people who claim to love you don't protect you or don't fight for you. And I ain't trying to say, I ain't trying to say Negroes should go to jail behind me, but I'm saying if I feed your soul, if I watch over your soul, I bless your babies, I bury your mama, and the first time you have an issue, I'm the person you call, I would think you would protect me. I would think that in some battles I shouldn't even have to fight when it comes to me.
And that's what I was going to ask Bishop Foreman. Don't you think that there should be a sense of loyalty to the extent that when you have done and are doing what you're doing, that as Pastor Free said, there's some battles that you shouldn't have to fight, that folks that you're doing stuff for and feeding into and allowing to be in your space. Isn't there some obligation on their behalf to jump in front and say, hey, hold on, this is not how we're gonna do the man of God?
I think should there be? Yes. But I think expecting that, here's where frustration comes in, when you have an expectation that people have demonstrated that they will not meet. Now, to hear what he just said about what they said about his wife, because listen, I am no fool to think that people don't say a variety of things in private, but to say that publicly like that just blows my mind. I almost want to go retroactive and say, give me the information and I'm going to go retroactive. And don't you ask me no questions and we'll just, I'll send somebody to do it. I got a few thugs around me that I say. But no, in all seriousness, that blows my mind. Should there be a sense of loyalty? Absolutely. But I think that the reality is that for some people, that sense of loyalty just isn't there. I can't say for all, because, and I don't know, again, I can only speak from my experience and that shaped my paradigm. I have had some amazingly loyal people who have been taught those principles, who've been taught those things. And then I've had some people who have done some things that have been the most atrocious, ridiculous, crazy things that you look at it and say, well, wow, I mean, this is how you treat somebody who fights for you. But then I don't want to be overly simplistic of the issue, but Jesus was the greatest pastor, greatest leader, greatest spiritual father, greatest bishop, greatest apostle, whatever you want to pick. And yet he still had a man trade him for some money. And I think sometimes we live in a generation, there was a prophet, a prophet who wrote a song. His name was Chris Brown. And Chris Brown said that some folks just ain't loyal.
No, he said,
he said something else, but I'm trying to spiritualize it. And so the truth is should there be? Absolutely. Is there from everybody? No. But again, I go back to the fact that for me personally, I had to begin to reduce my expectation so that I did not live in
Is that a learned behavior, though, Bishop?
It is.
It's a learned behavior.
If you don't do that, you will have PTSD. If you don't do that, okay, I'll give you a perfect example. So I'm very paternal in nature. And so through the years, people of all ages, from 70s to, 7, have chosen out of their own volition, they've used the term, and this is common, especially in the African-American church, where the African-American pastor is so much more than the pastor. You are the pastor, you're the lawyer, you're the doctor, you're the father, you're the brother. We do 10 jobs. Got it? That's not the same in our counterparts. It's not the same. They come, they preach, they drink their coffee, have a little sandwich, and they're out. That's just not the case in the African American church, generally speaking. And that being said, I remember there was a family, and they, my spiritual father, and the daughter would call me, my dad, and all this and all that. Now, I never asked anyone to do that. And when it first began, it was sort of different. But in that, I mean, every week would come up to me, my dad, oh, this, oh, this, or this, or that. And on a Friday, I get a call from who was the chief of staff at the time. I get a call and they said, "Oh, well, so and so's here to pick up their stuff." I said, "To do what?" Yeah, they just came in and said, you know, they felt like the message that was preached last night was really directed at them, and so they're leaving. So she came to get her stuff, and and this, they don't want to be part of church anymore. I said, wow. I said, well, I thought I was all in. I thought it was your dad, and I was all in. So even when someone would use that terminology, dad, spiritual father, any of that, that was a trigger for me, to the point where I was like, God, dog, just call me Bishop. Just can you not do that? Or just just call me Dr. Paul. It was a trigger. I knew that I was finally healed from that when somebody else just did it the other day. And I looked at it on social media and it didn't trigger any negative emotions for me. So to your point, yes, it's a learned behavior. And I won't say that it's perfection, because we're still human beings. But for me, I have had to learn. I do not reduce my expectation and love the people, but make sure that I do not love the people to a place where they get in between me and him.
My grandmother used to use an expression, and I didn't understand it until many years later. She said, "You got to learn how to treat people with a long-handled spoon," and I never really understood that until you get in this business, and you go, "Oh, okay, I see what you're talking about." Yeah, you got, yeah, I get it, Pastor Jones. So how do you overcome those feelings when they come? How do you overcome? How do you push through?
It's kind of like what Bishop Foreman just said. So, unlike Moment of Transparency, unlike the rest of the fellows on the panel, they suffer from pastor hurt. But I've also been responsible for church hurt. I've hurt people, right? And so, and of course, when I hurt the people, it went viral in public, right? Um, so what I did was I lowered my level of expectations, but for the wrong reason. I lowered my level of expectation in order to regain acceptance.
Whoa, you
And
got
then,
to.
so okay, let's just be frank. I lowered my level of expectation to get people to like me again.
Okay.
And so what I started doing was accepting what I should not accept, doing what I should not be doing. And instead of pastoring, right, I put myself as a victim. And so it just came to a point to where I didn't care who was going to be mad at me, who forgave me. I just stopped caring, right? And so I started to raise my level of expectation. Because the unique thing is, Bishop Foreman, we can lower our level of expectation, but at the same time, they raise their level of expectation for us. And so it's crazy you said that, because I just told my church at Bible study, a lot of the stuff, this is last Wednesday, a lot of the stuff that they expect the pastor to do, right, is not biblical. It's not jobs God gave us, you know. And so, but they want everything out of us. And then sometimes what they don't understand is they want it at the wrong time. It's a bad time for you to be needy. Why is it a bad time for you to be needy? Because privately, I'm dealing with my own. And then, and maybe y'all can relate to this. How many of y'all call people, check on people, text people, right? In the words of my daddy, just to get ahead of it. You don't do it genuinely. Sometimes you do it just to say you did it. Like that is a lot of unnecessary pressure. I'm trying to figure out how I'm making payroll Friday, right? But doing that, I got to make sure I call you. It's funny that Pastor Free is on here because something I did the other day at the church that I shouldn't be doing, and I said in my mind, I bet Free ain't got to do this. right? So my thing is, we lower our expectations, but they raise their expectations for us. Not understanding that it's literally not only just hurting us. I'm not gonna speak for anybody. Not only just hurting me, but it's literally sucking the life out of me. And so, Bishop, I don't have an answer for you as to how I do it. I just keep serving. I didn't figure out. I don't have a solution. I keep preaching. I keep teaching. You know, that's just all I do. That's the only. I just told my fiance last night that I do what I do because I'm called to it. And since I'm called to it, I don't have an option to quit. Everybody has an option to leave. Everybody has an option to quit their job. I don't have that option. So I do what I do because I'm called to do it. So I don't have a solution for how to handle it. I just keep pressing.
So, Pastor Free, I'm going to shift the conversation a little bit. You started, you made a statement last week that started something, and I want to jump into that portion about how pastors really create angst amongst other pastors. I don't remember how you phrased it exactly, but you said something to the effect that a lot of what pastors go through are situations created by other pastors. Kind of help me understand what you mean.
Basically, in my pastorate, I've learned that a majority of the issues that I deal with, there's a pastor behind it somewhere. Um, people tend to sometimes pit pastors against one another, but then I have also experienced pastors interjecting themselves in situations and maybe giving advice or making statements to kind of turn the hearts of a person because they think they're gonna benefit from it, right? And so there may be people who let me say it, let me be honest. People who can't out preach me, or people who can't outthink me, or can't out create me, but if they can get one of my sheep in a corner and cause that sheep to see me differently, then maybe they can grow their ministry in that way. And I think that ambition does a lot to destroy the fabric of the church. Some people are
Right.
so ambitious that they will use any opportunity or anything they perceive to be an opportunity to advance themselves, even if it means having to tear down somebody else. And so, unfortunately, a lot of pastors, we use the term co-laborers, right? You got to preach my co-laborers in the gospel. But the truth of the matter is, many of those people that we see as co-laborers see us as competition.
As competitors, absolutely.
And so sometimes you competing with Negroes you don't even know you competing with until you find out that they dragging your name in the streets, or they going behind your back talking crazy, or telling your people that they would have done something differently. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's some stuff. And I'm gonna be honest, God has blessed me to sit at the table with a lot of white pastors, and they just don't seem to do that. I hate to generalize, I hate to knock our people, but that just seems like that's some stuff that us do.
Jude, you have some experience with that, sir?
I do. I
You
wrote,
said you were going to be quiet, but I ain't going to let you be quiet. So,
wrote about that very thing today. I had a retired pastor attach himself to me. He began showing up every Sunday morning at worship, just as if he was a member and in support. And the whole time he was giving information to the leadership on how to get rid of me. Free is right. Behind every hurt pastor is another pastor helping to foster the hurt. Sheep know how to bite by nature. They don't know how to fight by nature. So you have to have somebody who is helping those sheep to fight you along with biting you. Now you're going to be bit because you are in the general area of the sheep. It's just how it's set up to be. But then when you have somebody who's giving them explicit instructions on what to do to get rid of you, then that's a horse of a different color. So yeah, I've experienced it, man, in my 35 years, and I'm at the point now where I don't look, and I tell fellas, don't look at your church. Look at what preachers your church allowed to influence them along with what you're doing. You will find that there is some preacher, some pastor who is in the area who is dropping salt on them, in them, so that they can further.
I had a pastor. Tell me that he was leaving a church, and he had submitted to the church. This is who I'd like to replace me. He was what he understood to be a loyal servant of the house, if you will. And the Sunday that the man took over, he got up and preached a sermon saying Moses is dead and we didn't need him no how. And you thought, wow. Now I put you in this thing, and this is what you're doing. Pastor Jason, man, thanks for joining us today. Let me hear your thoughts on some of what you've heard us discuss today.
Let me say that I love you all, and I honor you for your service to God's kingdom. Having said that, I'll tell you of an experience in short. I served for 16 years in ministry with my pastor until his death, and the church had a bit of a split after his death, and here's my expectation. I chose to be obedient to my pastor's teaching and stay out of it. And I chose to encourage other people to, as he said, pursue peace. And the church turned against me because I wouldn't choose sides.
Wow.
So you have an expectation, because you've served in ministry for almost 20 years with the same people, that when the pastor dies, I didn't know if they were going to choose me to be their next leader. And quite frankly, by that point in my life, I didn't want to be their next leader. I just wanted to have peace in the church, so whoever the next leader was, we could carry on and move forward. So I had to reset my expectations to save my own sanity and to keep peace in my own house, because the church turning against me affected my whole family, not just me, my wife, my children, my sisters, their children. So it was a real mess. And I'll say one more thing and I'll be done. So when I was asked to start pastoring, my initial answer, reset of expectations, was no, because of the hurt that I'd experienced before. And I just didn't want to put myself in that position anymore. I didn't need the money. I didn't need the extra responsibility. I didn't need people pulling on my time anymore. The only reason that I accepted the call, and the only reason that I'm still doing the job today, is because I know the Lord called me to it, and that's it.
That's exactly what Pastor E. Okay, there's this comment that came in, and I'd like to start with E addressing this. Expectation is key. Church is a place where we serve others while praising and worshiping Jesus. We should only expect to serve and not be served. E.
Okay, all right. That's an excellent statement in theory. Now, hear me
So what do
well.
you? Okay, go
Hear
ahead,
me
Jude.
well when I say we're not expecting to be served in as much as we are expecting to be served with. Serve alongside me. Do not serve me. I am not here to be served. I am here hoping that you will help me to serve.
All right. Eric.
Well, let me say this. Let me say this because I want to reach back and scratch something Pastor Free said. Um, uh, if the perception is when you're looking at this and it's telling you that you have a group of men asking to be served, right? Then that's what you're looking for. So I really want to address that because that's just somebody looking for something. Not one time do we say we want to be served, right? As a matter of fact, in my last Bible study, all we talked about is how we are servants, right? So I don't want to really bother that. I want to go back to something Pastor Free said because, uh, again, I'll say what somebody else won't say. I've been pastoring 13 years, but my day one of pastoring, it wasn't 13 years, meaning I grew into where I am now. So I haven't always been pastoring 13 years. I have been guilty, right, of taking something somebody else said with their experience at the other church and trying to get them to come to my church. I have been guilty of that, right? Uh, and it's crazy because me and Free had a conversation 4 or 5 years ago, right? And he hit me up like a brother and said, "Bro, it seems like you recruiting them, right?" Well, what I have learned as it relates to that, because that's a lot of, I think that's a part of a lot of hurt as it relates to pastors, right? And then a lot of the private dirt, a lot of the private dirt is real hurtful because it's like this, you hear it, but you can't speak on it type of deal. But anyway, one thing I've learned in 13 years um, is I've learned that not only do hurt people hurt, but bitter people bite. And if they mad and bitter at their church, I've learned that, right?
Yes, sir.
I had a lady tell me last year, Pastor E, I just want you to know that we coming close to our decision. It's at this church and this church. And I said, okay, baby, well, we don't recruit. As a matter of fact, I prefer you let the Lord make that decision. Don't y'all make that decision. Because we're not going to recruit to come. Fellas, let me tell you something. Free has been part of this influence in my life. Jude has been part of this influence in my life. Bro, I pastor the people God assigned to me. That's it. And whatever it looks like, right? I'm tired of trying to convince people and trick people and do all this stuff to get people to come. I have failed in that, right? Not knowing that when you do that, you're part of the problem. You're part of pastors being hurt. You're part you make that problem for them. And like Free says, and then you want to get up and talk about how you my co-laborers of the gospel. You know what I mean? Dude, I
You
want to
know,
call
that's
people out so bad on that, but I won't do it. But I'm just saying that is part of it. And Free, right? Matter of fact, I'm surprised he didn't go deeper because I know Free, right? But he's right. It's just so
he
much
said he was going to be
that
good to
yeah, he said, yeah, it must be, he
me.
must gonna go do communion or something. But that is a significant part of Pastor Hurt. You know what I mean? And when you have people, like he just said, so many judgmental people, bro, when they look at the dudes, some of the biggest problem with the people is they believe what they see on Facebook. They don't understand how pastor really works. They don't understand how many pastors don't get paid. They don't understand how many pastors go broke trying to financially support their church. But they believe something, and then we're always this target, right? Now you want to come at pastors all the time, but them be the same people that the pastor to bail them out. You know, ain't no hurt like a person that got their mouth on you who you had to help.
Absolutely.
and they done left
Absolutely.
your church, right? And then telling somebody else how much that church is better than this church, but they've done it after you have helped them.
So Bishop Foreman, what do you think about some that what Pastor Free said? And I loved it. He's like, instead of seeing me as a co-laborer, y'all really looking at me as a competitor. What do you tell me your experience about that?
Sure. I mean, I think unfortunately that's the culture. You know, we live in this
You
capitalist.
got black people though. Is that black people? Or is that
No, that's all. Our context as African Americans, all of us are African Americans. That's going to be the preponderance of the paradigm from which we preview the scenario. But the reality is,
you didn't alliterate
I
like
see
that?
you, Bishop. I see you, Bishop.
listen, come on, I'm with my Baptist brother, so I got a little. But no, in all seriousness, though, so that's our paradigm. But I can assure you, humanity is humanity is humanity. If anything, it's probably worse for our counterparts. But the reality is this. Is unfortunately that's what it's become, and I think that's because the mentality again is that for you to succeed, that requires another to fail. For you to do well, that requires another to lose. And I don't do it that way.
Insecurity. That ain't that, but that's ain't the root of that insecurity on the part of the mess starter.
It can be insecurity, certainly, but I think it can be even deeper than that because just look at the nature of business. If you have a business, you want to get as many people as you can in your business to buy your product. You know, let's remember the burger wars, Burger King versus McDonald's. Burger King was brazen in that they were the first to pull out their competitor's burger and say, our burgers are better because they're flame broiled, the Whopper's bigger and all of that. And so we live in a culture that says, I need to attack somebody that does the same thing, not realizing that while you may be in the same occupation, it's not the exact same vocation. Who you're called to reach is not going to be the same that another is called to reach. And so I am never at competition with anyone else but yesterday's version of myself. So I think, certainly there's insecurity. There's so many layers to that, but I think it is also it's baked into culture. And unfortunately, many people view it that way. I don't. I want to see others win. So I'm the guy that helps people. I'm the guy that says, do this, do this, do this, do this, go check over this, look at this. That's the way I am. But also, again, that's, us givers are always going to be those that flourish. And so, that's my thoughts on that.
So, Pastor Free, did you ever, or have you ever went and say, hey, bruh, like, what's up with this? Like, Eric is shaking his head.
So, anybody who knows me knows that whatever's on my mind or my heart, it ain't gonna stay there too long. And I'm going typically, I'm a very direct person. Sometimes people will hit me up about Facebook posts and be like, hey, who you taking a slug at? And I'm like, hey, you don't know me because I don't take slugs on Facebook. I'm going to pick up my phone. I'm going to call you. I'm going to ask you to go to lunch because I want to look in your eyes and tell you how I feel. And I want to be looking in your face when you respond. And so, and I believe that that's what the Bible teaches us to do. And, I'm not a perfect person at all, but I believe that book, man. Like, I try to live my life as best as possible. If I hear that there's, something that's been said, and how people like to be, they like to be like, well, I heard this, but, keep me out of it, which to me says something about their character too. But when I know, that there's an issue that somebody else has, or they've been, running my name, like they go get a call from me and we're going to talk about, because sometimes people are lying, right? I was having a conversation with a pastor the other day, and I talked about the fact that, the issue between Abraham and Lot wasn't even between Abraham and Lot. It was between the people that were following them. And sometimes it's people who sit in our pews that are creating drama in the pulpits. And so the only way to really squash it is to go straight to the horse, look in the eyes, and see what comes out of his mouth. That was like an old country colloquialism, like something Jude would say.
So we have a question. Let's see what this question says. Shouldn't the pastor and his members be focused on winning new souls and not robbing other churches? I would think that the members recruit much harder than the pastor. Can we hold a pastor responsible for that? Who wants to take that question?
We've always been raised to believe and to teach that sheep have sheep. Shepherds don't have sheep. Shepherds teach sheep when it's actually mating season. So I'm a proponent that if the church is going to grow and if we're going to win souls for the kingdom, it should be sheep who do the work.
All right, Pastor Jason, you're muted.
Here we go. Yeah, I'd like to make a sentence and then answer the question if I can.
Sure.
One, leadership without honor. Well, service without honor is the definition of usury, and usury is an abomination to the Lord. Leadership without honor is the definition of slavery. I hear big eyes. I see big eyes and a couple of head nods. I get it. So I'm gonna leave that with you, and that is, I am not called to serve with you. I am called to lead you. I'm supposed to be an example of godliness to you, an example of godliness for you to follow. And even though your position, your role, your position, everybody can't be the coach. Somebody's got to be the players. Your position as a sheep, your position as a congregant, your position as a member of the church is to serve the Lord as I lead, or in the direction that I lead. And I honor you in that position so that you don't feel used by me. At the same time, please don't take my position for granted, because even though I may be paid by the organization as its leader, I am not your slave.
Wow.
Respect my family time. Respect my family time. Respect my wife's anniversary. Leave me alone. Let me go hug and kiss on my wife so I can be a better pastor for you. And all of that. Let me go hang out with my children and go rah 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 at their baseball game or whatever it is I'm gonna do with them. So that I can spend some days not being a pastor and remember what it was like to be me. Now, let me address the question. I don't think it's fair to wide angle brush pastors and say that we're stealing one another's members, although I think I understand the spirit of the question. I do think that people have the right to choose their churches, and I think that decision is a family decision. If you are not in a church, if you are a member of a church and you are not in a church where you feel that your needs are being met by the ministry, then you have every right, along with your family, to discuss what moves to make next, to pray over it and fast over it, and to see what moves you need to make next, whether it is to stay with the leader you're currently under or to move to another one. And just because the guy down the street preaches better than I do, and more people are attracted to his message, I have nothing to say about that, because ultimately, I have to trust that God is sending me the people He wants me to pastor, and He's sending them. He's sending the other guy or girl the people that He wants them to pastor. So, I don't think of us are actively recruiting anybody else's members. I think we're just trying to do the best we can with what we have. In addition, I think that people, in addition, and this is the last part of the sentence, in addition, I do think that like good greens, you can't quite describe them, but you will talk about them. So my responsibility, I'm right now in this conversation, I might be talking to you, but in the back of my mind, I'm stirring that pot, trying to get that soup nice and good, because Sunday's coming. And I'm gonna serve the people. And if it's good, they're gonna go talk about it.
All right. So we're about close to the end. I like that. This is like good greens. You can't describe it, but you tell everybody about it. I like that. I like that. So
you better put some fat meat in them greens, man.
Show enough. Hallelujah. And I wouldn't mind a little stitch of cornbread next to it, okay?
Hey.
All right, gentlemen, thank you again so much for joining us tonight. This was a great conversation. I think we got to really even kind of dig in a lot more. I really appreciate you all. I will see everyone next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Take care. Bye-bye.
Peace.